Hey everyone, we are at the Swedish Embassy in Prague. Today we are going to interview the Swedish ambassador to Czech Republic, Fredrikem Jörgensenem. We are going to cover issues such as the war in Ukraine or the state of the European democracy. So, let me introduce our host today, Fredrikem Jörgensen, the current ambassador of Sweden in Czech Republic, previously representing Sweden in Bonn, Pretoria, the capital city of South Africa, and Rome, and most recently as the Swedish ambassador to Copenhagen, Denmark. So, hello.
Hello, you've done your homework.
Yeah, I tried. Yeah. So maybe we can start early with the first question. Thank you very much. What led you to pursue a career in diplomacy?
I'm a lawyer by training, so I studied law for 5 years in Stockholm. And then I started to work at the municipal court. I thought I was going to be a judge.
Yeah.
But I wanted to work with legal affairs, if possible, abroad in an international context. And this is many years ago. This is a long time ago. These days, many Swedish companies and Czech companies and Czech and Swedish regions, they have an office in Brussels or
of course,
all around the world. But when I started off, it wasn't like that. So the best option, if you wanted to work abroad, that was to join the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I applied for that training program and I got in on my first attempt. And since then, I've been working for the ministry.
Okay, so you never...
But I'm a lawyer by training, so I've had good use of that knowledge, but now I'm working more with politics.
Okay, so you firstly started with international law.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question, what are the biggest challenges you have faced as an ambassador in Czech Republic and in general, probably?
Well, in Czechia, it's quite easy to be a Swedish diplomat because we are very close. And there are very strong and positive sentiments between Czechs and Swedes. So here, I've never come across any real problems in that sense. Everything has been working very smoothly. In a social context, I like Czechs very much, and they appreciate us being here. So it hasn't been difficult. More challenging maybe on other postings, but overall, I've had quite a good career, and that I've always had postings that have been interesting.
Yeah, I saw.
so in that sense, I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate, and I can't think of any big problems in my career, but of course sometimes you work a lot. We tend to mix our free time with work, so quite often we work late, we work weekends, and that's a price to be paid, maybe not for me but for my family, for my children and for my wife. So in that sense, work can be tough because the family pays a bit of a price.
Yes, of course. So it's in general more than one affair that happened, and it was like you had some tough negotiations or something. Well,
we quite often have difficult political talks, but that's part of our job. That's what we do.
Yeah,
so I don't see that it's not a problem.
Yeah.
But we're trying to find compromise, and we try to convince the people sitting on the other side of the desk, maybe. But that's part of our job, so I don't see it as being problematic in that sense.
So my next question was, how do you deal with these difficult negotiations, if it's a problem or it's kind of natural for you maybe to negotiate something for your country?
Well, in Prague and in Czechia, quite often we are talking to our Czech friends and colleagues, not to negotiate with them to get any advantages from Czechia, but we are working closely together on European affairs, for instance.
Okay.
Because Sweden and Czechia are very close in political terms. So we tend to look upon political events in Brussels, for instance, from a similar perspective. So quite often we are talking about how to work together on a specific topic. And so that's a very positive agenda, since we are looking at European developments from the same perspective, more or less.
Of course.
So we hardly have any bilateral problems.
Yeah.
It's more about developing our way of cooperating. That's important to us.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, what has been the most memorable experience as an ambassador in Prague or in Czech Republic in general? Has there been one moment that really stood out from the other and
Yeah, if I were to mention one thing, maybe it would be the inauguration of the president. I think that was impressive.
Yeah,
that was a
course.
fantastic ceremony. That was a conclusion also of a very interesting political process. And when the diplomatic corps, we were able to take part at the swearing in, and that was impressive.
Okay, yeah, I bet.
So that was really interesting, and we have a close cooperation with the castle, of course, and with the president's administration.
Well, you have it close. So.
And it's close. It is
Yeah.
close. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure now how many more years do you have as an ambassador in Czech Republic, because I've seen that your previous ambassadors in here were here
Yeah.
for 5 years.
That's right.
So your term is ending already, or
Almost all Swedish ambassadors have been here for as long as possible, because it's a good posting.
Yeah, obviously.
And we like being here. So I've extended my stay now as long as possible. I'll be leaving now in July this summer. And then I've been here for 5 years.
Oh, okay. And then you're going to be leaving, or?
I'll be going home after this, because
okay.
before I came here, as you said, I was ambassador to Denmark for 5 years.
Yeah.
We tend to say that after 10 years abroad, you should go home again.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe to be naturalized, to get your
Come back
loyalties
to
right,
roots.
and get used to work in Sweden again.
And do you have some goals within these few next months that you would like to achieve, or have you already achieved all you wanted here?
I don't think I have any specific goals remaining, but I would like to leave a good testament, let's say, for my successor who's coming after me. I'll be passing on some recommendations about people to meet, and how I think that this embassy works, and I would like to the next person to work along the same lines, more or less.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing now. I'm preparing myself to leave, and I'm preparing the ground also for somebody else to come in.
Yeah, I believe the post of an ambassador is mainly about the contacts you have in the country, right?
It is quite important, yes. What we are trying to do is to bring people together. That's one reason why we were struggling a lot during the time of the COVID pandemic. That was really tough for us.
Of course.
Because normally we want to meet people in person like this. And we bring people together, we negotiate, we try to do things together with others. And when we can't do that, it was really
I bet.
traumatic for us.
Okay.
That was a bit strange.
Yeah. In which country would you like to serve next after Czech Republic, after being in your country for a while? Do you have some dream country? You would like to...
I'm not sure I'll be having a second posting, a new posting abroad. I will see. It depends on how long I stay in Sweden.
Yeah.
Now my son is 15, so he should go through the gymnasium, I hope, in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I'll see for how many years I'll be working still. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind.
I mean, I think Rome is quite an impressive...
Rome was very interesting, but fantastic city, but a bit difficult to live in.
Yeah.
With the traffic, with the noise, with the heat and all this.
Yeah.
But fantastic, it was nice.
I bet it had to be a big change from Rome to Copenhagen.
It was, but Copenhagen for us is a bit like coming home. It's our region.
Yeah.
We know it, and we are very close to Denmark. So that was a very nice experience. That was a very special thing.
If you should compare the work in Copenhagen and here in Czech Republic, I mean, you already mentioned you have more probably Swedes in Copenhagen, but in general, how is it different, the work that you do?
It's always a very special thing for any ambassador to be the ambassador in a neighboring country.
Yeah.
If the Czech ambassador to Bratislava, for instance, that's a very special role to play.
Course.
And the opposite would be the case for the Slovak ambassador coming here. And for me, working in Denmark also was a special thing. There's a lot of focus on the ambassador, and you have a very special role to play in that very close relationship.
Yeah, it's a very prestigious role, isn't it?
It's prestigious and important. For me, it was a bit special because my father came from Denmark before I was born.
So you had a personal
he met this beautiful Swedish woman, and that was to be my mother. Yes. And then I was born. So I'm half Danish. So for me, it was very, very special to come to Denmark.
Of course. Okay. So my next question is if you had any funny or awkward moments serving as a diplomat here in Czech Republic or in other countries. Can you think of anything?
I don't think I've come across anything in Czechia as being strange or funny, maybe in that sense. But when I was working further away, maybe sometimes. When I was in South Africa, it was another cultural context.
Of course.
So sometimes I could feel that I was slightly offside and I couldn't really quite understand where I was or the proper context and exactly what to do when taking part in ceremonies or manifestations. That was a bit... that was a new world for me, but interesting.
Of course.
Here it's easier to understand, of course, because we're in a European context.
Yeah, obviously. Okay, so that was the biggest shift you have.
That was the biggest shift. That was the most exotic posting for me in South Africa. Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to probably get into the more deep issues. So the first question is, if you had to predict the biggest international challenge for the European Union in the next 10 years, what would it be?
The biggest challenge for the coming next 10 years, most likely, or beyond any doubt, will be the construction or the reconstruction of a security policy structure for architecture for Europe.
Of course.
With the war in Ukraine and with what we are seeing now, that'll be a major challenge for all of us to make Europe stronger, to make sure that Europe can speak with one voice. That's really important.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I mean, if we take a look at the state of the European democracy today, do you think the rise of extremism and populism could maybe endanger it? Because European is known for its strong democracy, but we do see these like the extremism and populism rising. So do you think
that's a growing problem that many societies in Europe and in many parts of the world are becoming more and more polarized. Conflict is growing and people are getting more and more upset and less inclined to accept the views of others, and that's an important part of democracy, that you're prepared to listen to others and to look for compromise. And if people are not prepared to do that, then democracy as such will be in jeopardy. So this is something that we also have to work with. Strengthening democracy, working with, at the same time, not working towards censorship, but work for a political culture that is more based on compromise and on an open dialogue. That's important.
Yeah, of course.
But it's difficult. It's really difficult. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, you are very well known for your support of Ukraine. You support it publicly and very loudly in its defense against the Russian aggression. Do you believe that the conflict could end with a fair deal for Ukraine and provide long-term peace and stability for the region?
That has been the overall objective for the European Union, for Sweden as a country, and for myself in a very modest way, to contribute to a solution that is fair for Ukraine. We have said all along that any negotiations, they will have to take part on the basis of decisions taken in Kiev. Ukraine itself must decide when to negotiate and how to negotiate. And nothing must be decided without Ukraine being present. And also, we believe that that's a Swedish position, but it's also the position of Czechia and the European Union, that when an agreement, a peace agreement is found, also Europe as a whole must be taking part in those discussions.
Of course. We don't see that right now.
We haven't seen it yet, but we are certainly working towards that objective, and we hope that will be possible.
Of course.
Because the result of the war in Ukraine and the outcome and the ultimate agreement, that will have a great influence on Europe as a whole. Therefore, Europe must be present.
Yes. Okay. And in the light of the latest actions from the White House, do you believe Ukraine can survive without the support, financial support from the US?
Now, what we have seen from the US, we are getting new signals every day. But the latest we've heard is that the American support for Ukraine is being paused.
Yeah.
It has not been scrapped. It's not taken away, but they have paused it for the time being. How far-reaching this will be, nobody knows. But of course, if the US would decide not to support Ukraine in the future, that will be a major blow for Ukraine. And Europe as a whole would need to step up, to take more of responsibility for its own defense, but also for helping Ukraine.
Of course.
And that's what we are working with now, finding new means of supporting Ukraine.
And do you believe that European Union or Europe can provide such help for Ukraine? Because we can already see that all of the countries are providing a lot of their money towards it. So do you believe even for their in state affairs, do you think they can justify it to their people?
I find it difficult to see any alternatives. We need the strengthening of Ukraine and finding a reasonable peace agreement, that is an existential question for the whole of Europe.
Of course.
If we cannot find a solution that gives Ukraine a lasting peace, that would jeopardize peace also in other countries in Europe, in Czechia and in Sweden, in the Baltic countries. So we need to continue supporting Ukraine. That's the foundation upon which we are now building our commitment. We need to find the ways to do this.
Okay. And the last question, what advice would you give to young diplomats starting their careers today or in the next following years?
That's a good question. But if you are thinking of a career in diplomacy, one important thing is, and that's difficult to command, or you can't decide to have it. But one important thing in your personality should be to be curious, to be open towards the outer world, to be eager to know more. And one thing that diplomats sometimes forget is that you need to know a lot about the world at large, the world outside your own country, but you also need to know a lot about your own country, because you would be, in your case, you would be representing Czechia.
Yeah.
So you need to know a lot about the Czech way of thinking, the Czech way of working, because you will be getting a lot of questions on that topic. So you need to know both. You need to know a lot about the country where you are going to be able to work with them, but you also need to know very much about the country that you're representing. That's important.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was the last question I had for you. So I thank you very much for this opportunity to have this interview today. And I got some very interesting answers. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.